Hey, what's good, self-direct investors? I hope you're all doing great, and I want to welcome you back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jordan, and today we're coming at you with a midweek update in the world of cannabis. Now, before we jump in, if you enjoy this video or you learn something, please just leave a like on it, as it really helps out my channel. And of course, if you want to learn how to take advantage of this generational investment opportunity, subscribe below so that you don't miss any future videos, and there's plenty of content for you to go back, rewatch, and educate yourself with. Try to think of it as a time capsule. I've tried to put all the news and facts in one place so that you can watch episodes over time to learn about the evolution of the industry, identify top US MSOs that you keep seeing pop up that you think will be worth more in the future than they are now, and take advantage whenever you feel ready, of course pending whatever incremental reform we are waiting for. But just a reminder, I hope you all had a great Canada Day and Independence Day, but we're back at it as we are still waiting for Joe to keep his promise from October 2020, and then MJ Stock Trader shared this again in March 4th of 2022, and now we're July 5th of 2023. The incompetence is just infuriating at this point, but we still hold out.
As President, I'll work to reform the criminal justice system, improve community policing, decriminalize marijuana, and automatically expunge prior marijuana convictions. I'm Joe Biden.
And every day that Congress fails to do their job, the situation gets more dire. And so I just want to take this time to pivot away from cannabis for a sec, just to highlight the ridiculousness I'm at least seeing from the outside, because every day I'm thinking, what is going on with America and their ideals? The ideals I grew up loving and valuing so much. And at what point, when you see Biden in 2020 here compared to recent videos of him mumbling words or falling, it's just like, at what point does his family step in and say, Joe, you've had a great run, but it's time to prioritize your health and let's spend some family time together and maybe get your son back on track? Because on top of that, this story broke Secret Service investigating suspected cocaine found in the West Wing of the White House. Yet cannabis is still stuck in the Schedule 1 classification where it's deemed no medical value and too addictive to prescribe. Like, infuriating. And we scroll down, of course, what was this potentially dangerous substance? Could it have been anthrax or something really deadly? Further testing has taken place to confirm the substance is cocaine. Who do you think this belonged to? Saying that the substance tested positive for cocaine hydrochloride. The message was posted by the website OpenMHS, and they claim that, the family was away from the time. But how would that have gotten into the library? And on top of that, when stories like this are coming out, leaked photos, Hunter Biden smokes crack while driving at high speed, says report. And this is from WION. I'd never heard of this publication, and so I had to Google them. And it takes an international English language publication out of India to have the balls to honestly report on the dire situation that is the president's son. And I'm not even trying to rip on him. Like, to me, this is just sad. Clearly, he's craving the attention he never got from his father when his dad was busy writing up the 1994 crime bill, which is rules for thee, but not for me. And again, all jokes aside, the fact that he's still 53 and acting out and cannot get a grip or control on his own person is just, it's a fascinating case study. And so I invite you to pause to read, because I don't want to say anything that's going to get the video flagged and taken down. So some story highlights there, and then if we scroll down, just get this. In the leaked photo from 2018, when Hunter would have been 48, Hunter's now age 53, making it seem like he's cleaned up his act. When, well, clearly he hasn't based on the last story. But so there's one case of him smoking crack while driving through Virginia, and then another time of him traveling through Vegas, speeding on a Porsche, for whatever reason, taking photos of it. And so at what point can we hold this man accountable? And I'm just going to leave this here, whether you want to look at it or not. I'll put this link in the description, but essentially it has visuals, and if you want to believe your eyes or you don't want to believe your eyes, it's up to you. But I'm just leaving this here because at some point this family has to be held accountable, especially if they're involved in this many violations. And for the record, I don't follow this account because I'm into the occult or anything like that. I consider myself a Christian classic liberal that believes in the 3 pillars of free speech, free markets, and freedom of religion. But sadly, under this regime, it seems we're losing the free speech and free markets aspect. Freedom of religion is all we got left. And so I follow accounts like this because they are the ones that expose the truth that we do not see behind the scenes, that the mainstream media will not cover. And so again, take this or leave it, up to you, but I also always go through the comments just to see how people respond, and seems like it is legit as they come. And so last bit of unrelated cannabis news that I wanted to share was a massive victory, as a federal judge yesterday just ordered the Biden admin to end government-directed and encouraged censorship on social media. Hey, an effort to get free speech back, right? And so below are some great quotes from the court's decision. Happy Independence Day, everyone. And so I invite you to pause to read if you're interested. But thank you, Aaron Siri, for this great summary. And so under Ben Franklin, from Evelyn Patrice Hill down to Harry S. Truman. And then from plaintiffs down to reducing content. Well, you can pause to read this last bit, but again, Americans, happy Independence Day. Do not forget the names of these heroes: Attorney General of Missouri, Andrew Bailey; AG of Louisiana, Jeff Landry; and Judge Terry A. Doughty for this incredible Independence Day gift, keeping American values like free speech at the forefront. And so full articles in the description, I'll put them there, but as always, I like to look at the comments just to get a gauge on how people respond to the post. And I think this sums it up. From Lebab Benoit: agreed, a great and just decision, but will they? Or will it just drive it further underground, as they were happy to do it all in secret before, and they've been doing it for years? Then Hat Rabbit says exactly, these people are criminals guilty of the highest crimes. The only choice they have is to keep it up and double down, or face trials. Given that, I expect World War III to start any minute, giving them the emergency war powers. And obviously, there's that talk about a false flag event happening in Ukraine today. And well, we know what happened to the Nord Stream pipeline. And so what do you think? Do you think that the Biden administration is doing a great job? Or do you think that it's possible whoever is pulling the strings is trying to release these stories in order to get Biden to step down just because, it's doing too much damage to America? I don't know. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. But back to cannabis, essentially why we focus on it, because studies do not lie and the data continues to pile up as therapeutic and supportive effects of cannabinoids in patients with brain tumors, CBD, oil, and cannabis. And so a few examples just to highlight why cannabis should have been descheduled decades ago. This one from January 2023. And so while the literature on this matter is young, published and anecdotal evidence imply that cannabis could be useful in treating chemotherapy-induced nausea and vomiting, stimulating appetite, reducing pain, and managing seizures. It may also decrease inflammation and cancer cell proliferation and survival, resulting in a benefit in overall patient survival. And while I disagree that the literature is young, the good news is we're getting more and more data, and at least they're telling the truth, as they had current literature poses the challenge that it does not provide standardized guidance on dosing for the above potential indications, and cannabis use is dominated by rec purposes. Do you think anyone who's vomiting, can't eat, or has so much pain really gives a fuck about the dose? No, they just want the pain to be relieved. Furthermore, integrated and longitudinal studies are needed, but these are challenges due to the arcane laws surrounding the legality of such substances and the fact it's still stuck in the Schedule 1. And on that matter of anti-inflammatory effects of cannabis sativa extracts on LPS-induced cytokines released in human macrophages, not going to pretend like I know what that is, but this was recently published June 25th, 2023. While it also fortunately piggybacks off the last story, as although acute inflammation is critical for survival, dysregulation of the innate immune response leads to chronic inflammation. From my understanding, one of the leading causes of diseases or medical conditions is chronic inflammation that just never gets addressed. And while many synthetic anti-inflammatory drugs like opioids or prescription medication have side effects, thus natural anti-inflammatory compounds are still needed. Cannabis, it's been here all along, for fuck's sake. So anyways, you can obviously pause to read more, but thus our work demonstrates the potential for the use of cannabinoids and cannabis extracts for the reduction of inflammation, and establishes IL-6 and MCP1 as the sensitive markers for the analysis of the effect of cannabinoids on inflammation in macrophages. And so ultimately what that says is that cannabis has been more helpful than not, and why we ought to deschedule so we can study this more and take it seriously. And so last bit, got this last one from PubMed that is even more revealing, as it looks at the World Anti-Doping Agency and how it classifies cannabis. So this was published from June 6, 2023, and the researchers titled it "Cannabis is Not Doping," because it's not. And so get this, cannabis is neither ergogenic or ergolytic, performance worsens, and the health risks for athletes are overestimated after 20 years of research. And clearly many athletes, like we saw in my last video, 80% of the NFL, it clearly helps with recovery and health, despite the fact that many institutions don't want to acknowledge it. But the significant problem remains in the complex and difficult interpretation, definition of the spirit of sports, which transcends the objectives of sports excellence for moral policing. They say the quiet part out loud. It has nothing to do with health or public health or athletes' health. It is all about control and taking the moral high ground and determining how cannabis is viewed in the public. And so cannot make this shit up. Last one, which is why the war on drugs is really a war on people and will always fail, especially when you consider this post from the UN Office of Drug and Crimes. 1 in every 17 people globally aged 15 to 64 used a drug in 2021. Notice there's a drug on here that's missing. That's probably the leading cause of any crimes or death, drunk driving, things like that. Yeah, the fact that they omit that and don't even add it in, you can't take the UN seriously anymore. And so on to some state stories, as Maryland sees long lines on first day of legal rec cannabis sales. So do not forget that Maryland did just launch and they are loving what they're seeing. So I will play this video.
Sunmed, Garcia.
It's been a long time coming.
From Colta off Key
Another
Highway
one.
downtown
Another
to
one.
Curio's Far and Daughter grand opening in Timonium.
1, 2, 3.
It's very exciting. Cannabis has changed my life professionally, personally, and for my health. So I'm ready for everyone else to experience that.
It's the end of prohibition.
People are showing out for
I
the
love
first
the
day
characters
of
they
legal
feature.
recreational
It's America,
marijuana
man.
sales
The
in
diversity
Maryland.
already. We don't need to
We've
keep pushing.
added staff, we've added product, we've added
think I should
security.
consider
We put
doing
in a secure pickup window.
And it's like a fresh batch, I'll give you that.
Relief shop
Cash?
at a line wrapping around the corner.
I think it's a historical event.
glad today that we could cut out the middleman and go straight in and get the access and help that we need.
Many dispensaries converting Saturday from a solely medical cannabis shop to adult use too. That includes Verano's Zen Leaf in Elkridge.
A lot more people, a bigger flow, but it still moves really fast, so it's still easy, get in, get out.
We're just eager to see this uptick continue, and hopefully, that translates to more jobs, more opportunities, and even more increase to safe access.
Of course.
Marylanders behind these businesses say this is just the beginning, and they're ready to educate people on how marijuana is changing lives.
Now, I think it's important that people that always saw the value in this plant but didn't have a medical card, didn't have a safe way to purchase it, and now they do.
And so we'll stop it there, and thank you. God bless local news for covering these stories, as we know that the national mainstream media will not want to touch this because it's going to put cannabis in a better light. But another story from Maryland, quadruple the customers. Maryland dispensaries see high volume on first day of cannabis legalization. And while I won't play this video because we just saw one, just wanted to share what Peak Relief President Warren Lemley said Saturday afternoon. He'd already seen 4 times the regular number of customers at his dispensary in Rockville, Maryland. Most of these customers were purchasing rec cannabis. Well, there's a bit more down here highlighting the benefits of ending cannabis prohibition, as Maryland will receive some nice tax revenue, and while 9% is a bit high for the consumer, it's not nearly as high as in some other states. Well, they reiterate that flower is king, and get this, all ages, all backgrounds, Lemley said, we've literally seen every demographic and every age that you can imagine. Cannabis bringing people together. And while I have nothing against alcohol, it's just the complete double standard and discrimination that cannabis faces that alcohol doesn't is just infuriating, right? But the biggest update we got this week, unfortunately not with the tone we were hoping for, but thank you Tom Engel for sharing. Senate Banking Committee Chairman Sherrod Brown would like to hold a vote on a cannabis banking bill this month. It'd be great if you would change the would like to we will, essentially because Congress will return from their recess July 11th, and as per Sherrod Brown, they will be doing a markup on the bill, and we were hoping that they would do the markup, second or third week of July, and then have the vote right away, but unfortunately it says it depends on other priorities advancing, and so what else do you know? They're always going to try and find other priorities besides cannabis, which honestly just increases my conviction that this plant is the miracle medicine that Big Pharma doesn't want to lose market share to. And so the good news is that Senator Steve Daines' office said he's open to attaching expungements to safe banking, but here's what we know. The Safe Banking Act by itself has enough votes to pass, according to Don Murphy, and from my understanding, the Safe Banking Act plus Hope might still have the votes to pass, but we know that Schmuck wants to add more social justice, and anything that Schmuck wants to add is likely going to get in the way of the bill being passable. And so, full link in the description if you want to go through it, but I read through it and it doesn't tell us anything that we don't already know. But this next story has a bit more information, and unfortunately in a negative tone, but still going to go through it as we see weed in the Senate Banking Committee's future, and this is from a press release from PunchBowl News. And so take this with a grain of salt as well, but according to them, cannabis banking probably waits on the other side of recess. What else is new? And while it's still good that it implies that it's happening because safe is still a when not if scenario, it's just infuriating that after all this time, why does everything get priority? Either the lobbying dollars obviously have influence, but is this plant really that good a medicine and Big Pharma really doesn't want it legalized? And so most of this featured in the last Marijuana Moment article, but just to touch on this last bit, the Safe Banking Act has had broad bipartisan support going back years, including a key ally in Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. Ha! Yeah, right, if you don't believe me, watch the last 2 years of my videos. But the reform has consistently been tripped up in the Senate. And while they say it was Mitch McConnell last year who didn't allow it, we know that Schmuck is the largest recipient of Big Pharma lobbying dollars according to OpenSecrets.org. And so having interest from the Senate Banking Committee this time around is crucial, though a Republican House will complicate things. No, it won't. They want to say that to divide, but we know that it's been Schmuck. And so hopefully, again, we're at a tipping point and this bill gets needed because obviously the banks are lobbying for it, and it's just common sense policy that should have been implemented a long time ago. And so you can pause to read this bit as well. But on to some good news as well for TerrAscend. Thank you, Toronto Stock Exchange. As of yesterday, TerrAscend is now trading on the TSX, TSND, the first US MSO to get off of the shit CSE boards and to move on to the TSX in Canada. And while I don't think this made a really big impact yesterday, as US markets were closed, so a lot of the volume from the US markets where it usually would come from didn't come in, but according to Jungle Java, TerrAscend traded 152,000 shares today with U.S. markets closed. As reference to the last U.S. holiday with Canadian markets open was June 19th, and it traded just 5,500 shares on the Canadian Securities Exchange, where sadly all other MSOs are stuck and being heavily shorted based on what we can see on shortdata.ca. And so it's a big improvement as well, but today should provide a better representation of what we might expect on the TSX in my opinion. However, while some people were very hopeful that this would lead to a big spike in volume, I haven't checked, maybe it will, but I still think we need safe passed, and then we need the rescheduling or descheduling announcement for the real volume and big whales to come back into the sector. And so last bit on that, Canopy Growth congratulates TerrAscend on Toronto Stock Exchange listing. Obviously, it's a big step for TerrAscend and for Canopy, as Canopy has conditional ownership stake in TerrAscend, which is worth approximately 18%, representing an aggregate market value of 155 Canadian dollars based on TerrAscend's closing stock price on July 4th. And so, of course, pending any ruling at the federal level where cannabis is no longer federally illegal, then Canopy can pull the trigger and buy TerrAscend. And so a bit more here if you wanted to pause to read, essentially, or grab the full link in the description. But with that, on to MSO news, as Green Thumb Industries to hold second quarter 2023 earnings conference call on August 8th. And they will do this after market closes. And so nice to see another MSO already getting ready for the second quarter. And I imagine Green Thumb is going to be cash flow positive and show that they are one of the best potential investments out of all the other MSOs. But again, this is not advice. Do your own research, but hopefully I give you some perspective to make it a bit easier. With that, out of ANF, Atlanta News First, as new dispensary expands patient access to medical cannabis in Georgia, one of the states to recently launch for medical, and great to see Trulieve now opening their third dispensary in the state. I believe this is in Noonan, helping serve and provide those in Georgia with a safer, non-addictive medicinal alternative. And so this is essentially it for the story. Otherwise, you can grab the full link in the description. But with that one, we have Curaleaf International subsidiary to acquire Cleverleaf's EU GMP certified processing facility in Portugal. And so a bit of an update from what Curaleaf is doing in Europe, as this deal apparently will significantly expand flower processing capacity, providing competitive advantage in rapidly growing EU market. And from my understanding as of right now, the EU market is still very small and does not contribute much revenue. However, obviously Curaleaf is looking farther ahead and trying to get a footprint in as many European states as possible. And while we had high hopes for Germany, I'm a lot more bearish now, because when they wanted to legalize and launch an adult use program like we've seen in Canada or legal states, the EU basically stepped in and said, because of old UN treaties, you do not have the right to do that, which is infuriating. But with that, just figured I'd share this, what I found Boris's take on German opportunity, better than we think, from an older Twitter Spaces that he did a few weeks ago with Toby Cannabis that I featured on my channel. He adds a few things just to remind us that MedLight begins in 2024 in Germany, very favorable for the incumbent suppliers. Essentially, Germany will deschedule cannabis from their narcotics list, and for whatever reason why they can't launch an adult use program, beyond me, but still a step in the right direction. No need for a written prescription, can order online. And while I appreciate the wisdom that Boris shares with us, while he can be optimistic, he's often wrong too. And so just figure, take these with a grain of salt. 3x to 5x growth expected in 12 to 18 months. This is a conservative estimate. Let's stick to that one versus maybe as high as the 10x. But nonetheless, this could be coming to Germany, and for players like Tilray and Curaleaf, could be very beneficial for them. And then I got this article from Business of Cannabis. European Commission told by politicians to clear the way for continental cannabis reform. And this is as of July 3rd. And so while this was definitely unexpected, it's a massive step in the right direction, as I think a lot of members of the EU Parliament realize that they don't have the national sovereignty that they thought they did, and now they want to do something about it, as the event had been co-sponsored by 4 of the 7 main European political blocs, representing almost 50% of the Parliament's 705 elected members, and they want the EU Commission to get out of the way. The importance of this gathering is not so much what we can get the EU Commission to do, it's more to see that they don't get in the way and hinder this process. We don't have competence over this area, but it seems the Commission has the power to throw spanners in the spokes when countries try to do it. The best thing we can achieve is to make sure we all know what is being told to us by the Commission and that it is consistent, so we all know what is exactly going on. And so essentially it seems like what they want to get to. There's a bit more here if you wanted to pause to read. But I think the main thing was that they figured a new commission would help. Well, hopefully not. It's just what we need to do is ensure that those UN treaties do not have the ability to override national sovereignty. And the only mention is here. He highlighted how the EU enforces these conventions more vigorously than their creators, the United Nations, and he expressed concerns that Czechia will receive only negative feedback from the EC on its proposal, meaning they'll end up before the European Court of Justice. And this is in response to the Czech Republic wanting to legalize cannabis, much like Germany was planning to do. And we'll see. Will the EU Commission get in the way, or will members of EU Parliament finally step up, grow a pair, and take action to get something done about this? And so last bit of states news before we end off, Brad Racino, here's how things are going in New York cannabis as of July 3rd, 2023. 1, at this point, there should have been at least 140 CAURD stores open across New York State. According to Govkachi Hochul in an October interview, there are only 16. So very bad. 2, 5 are operating as delivery-only services, and 1 is temporarily offline. So 10 brick-and-mortar stores total. Of those, 6 are justice-involved, not nonprofits. Well, number 3, as of last meeting, the Cannabis Control Board has awarded in total 251 CAURD licenses, 280 AUCC licenses, 40 AUCP licenses, 14 lab permits, 11 sampling from approvals. But all they can really show for it to date is the 1,500 illicit dispensaries running rampant and taking all the profits, because New York fucked this up so badly. Number 4, last month, after CAURD licensee and other interested parties publicly decried CCB member Ruben McDaniel's alleged conflict of interest, McDaniel resigned from his position on the board. First big win out of New York, really. He is still president and CEO of DASNY. Unfortunately, that is not as big of a win then as I thought. While the $200 million equity fund was funded on June 30th, as I reported in my last week's video, contributed the entire $150 million necessary. That was Chicago Atlantic. While we have no idea what the terms of the agreement are, they have not been made public. We've requested them, but based on DASNY's past compliance with FOILs, don't expect that info anytime soon. 6 ancillary service providers are still struggling. Some are taking on second jobs or expanding their scope of services. 7, in May, the OCM announced a plan to allow conditional cultivators and retailers to organize and sell weed at farmers markets in the summer, but that plan appears to be dead in the water, according to several sources within the state government. Wonder why. And so I'll put the link to this whole thread in the description if you want to go through any of these stories. I don't want to make this video too long, though, so I'm just going to share this, and you can pause to read. Number 8, number 9, number 10, and again, it's just problem after problem. Number 11, 12, and so when are these incompetent people going to be fired? I hope sooner than later. 13, 14, and then last bit. And so again, full link to the thread in the description if you want to go through that. But with that, thank you, Tom Engel, for sharing. As California's AG reports that courts have now sealed, resentenced, or dismissed 206,052 cannabis convictions, roughly 90% of those eligible for such relief. So big shout out to California for giving over 200,000 people their lives back, but still a ways to go, so don't toot your horn too soon. When subjects granted relief as of April 2023, 89, you've still got 11% to go. But hey, you've done great work. Continue to do so, but let us know when you were finished. And love this comment down here from the Desert Sage. Is good news legal on this platform? You'd almost forget, especially cannabis related. But with that, from Marijuana Moment, Missouri holds outreach event as state prepares for cannabis micro business licensing lottery. And I love these first 2 sentences down here because it highlights what other states are trying to do in the name of social equity without having to use the word social equity, because they're not focusing on really implementing socialist policy and trying to ruin the industry from the top down. Missouri's cannabis industry is the new gold rush, said St. Louis couple Tiffany and Anwar Lee, and they're considering buying a ticket for the lottery to get in. And the main reason that Missouri is the gold rush is because they're, again, building the industry from the bottom up, giving equal access to opportunity, and not focusing on equal outcomes or making everyone equally poor in the name of social equity. And so what's going to happen in Missouri? Their ticket is a $1,500 application fee for a spot in a lottery, making them eligible for a limited number of cannabis microbusiness licenses, and it's refundable if they don't get picked. So this program is meant to boost opportunities in the industry for businesses in disadvantaged community. This is how you give equal access to opportunity, and this is how it is done, and that is why Missouri is going through a gold rush, whereas New York and New Jersey are complete shit shows. So I'm sorry, Rebecca Rivas, that you lack the self-awareness to know what equity really is in the Marxist context, but what you're talking about here is equality, equal access to opportunity, the word we always used and should continue to use, as opposed to equity, equal outcomes, making everyone equally poor, like we see firsthand in New York. So last few stories, saw this one just before starting, but figured I would share it. And while it features an interview that was done in late June, so it's not really relevant, just we can laugh at how much of a shill this man is from Marijuana Moment. Booker slams 2-tier system of cannabis criminalization that shields powerful from punishment while discussing Hunter Biden plea deal. Imagine Hunter Biden was a stoner, how much more progress we'd see in cannabis. Oh my God, it would almost help him stop the crack and cocaine, most likely. Adding, if you're a congressperson, a senator, or a president, you can admit to using cannabis. Well, then why the fuck are you laying yourself down and stalling progress 2.5 years after you stole votes in order to get elected, right? No one believes this guy's shit anymore, and if you just go through the comments, it's everyone realizing this guy's funny. He's the one keeping the system in place. Get this guy's face off the page before I lay myself down. Just legalize already, right? The talk is infuriating when it's him getting in the way of the progress that he's claiming that he wants. And so last bit from Marijuana Moment, if the NCAA can end cannabis ban, so can the federal government, Congressman says. Yeah, no shit. And so that's why we're still holding out on them to do their job. The good news is that the NCAA moves a lot faster, and so hopefully we will see from now until the end of the year, Congress at least hold that vote for safe, pass it, and then announce whether they're rescheduling or descheduling cannabis. And obviously we're hopeful for descheduling being the best case. But that is it for today's episode, folks. Of course, full story for this, you can grab the link in the description. But what did you think of today's stories? Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or suggestions, and I'd be happy to address them. Besides that, if you enjoyed this video and you learned something, please just leave a like on it. Subscribe below if you don't want to miss any future videos, and I will catch you on Sunday for This Week in Cannabis News. Have a great week, everybody. Take care.